They keep staring at you like you're cheating time itself, and the longer they stare, the more their minds start bending under the pressure of trying to decode you. They don't realize that their fascination says more about them than it does about you, because people only obsess over what exposes them. And you, without speaking, without performing, without breaking your rhythm, expose something they've been avoiding for years. The truth of their own inadequacy. Every time you walk past them, they feel the sting of unrealized potential. Every time you stay calm in moments that would have made them crumble, they feel the burn of their own fragility. And every time you choose silence instead of chaos, discipline instead of reaction, focus instead of noise, they feel the weight of what they never mastered. You're not intimidating because you do too much. You're intimidating because you do so little, and yet everything you do lands with the force of intention they can't imitate. You breathe differently, you think differently, you move differently, and every difference feels like a reminder of what they failed to become. They assume you've always been this version of yourself, that you were born with this unshaken posture, this piercing awareness, this ability to glide through uncertainty like the outcome is already yours. But what they didn't see were the nights where you stood alone in the ruins of everything you once were. They didn't see the version of you that doubted, that broke, that shattered, that questioned every step forward. They didn't see how many times you rebuilt yourself when no one was watching. But they can feel it. They can feel the weight of the history you carry in your spine, the lessons written into your silence, the scars woven into your patience. That's why your presence feels like strategy, even when you're simply breathing. That's why your stillness feels like calculation, even when you're simply listening. That's why your timing feels like prediction. Even when you're simply prepared, they're not reacting to your actions. They're reacting to your evolution. Because evolution, when visible, feels like sorcery to the stagnant. And the stagnant always panic when someone refuses to stay small with them. Now they study your rhythm like it's a code. They analyze how long you pause between sentences. They dissect the way your eyes move when you're uninterested. They watch how you stand when you're in control. Every shift in your expression becomes a clue. Every breath becomes a blueprint. Every decision becomes a prophecy. They think they're gathering data on you, but what they're really gathering is evidence of their own obsession. They watch you like a puzzle that keeps rearranging itself. Every time they think they've solved you, you evolve again. You pivot in ways they didn't anticipate. You respond in ways they didn't expect. You rise in ways they can't process. You become a new version before they had time to understand the last one. And that's where their psychological collapse begins. Because humans crave patterns, and you refuse to give them one. You move with a fluid intelligence that breaks their frameworks. You're too intuitive to be predicted, too disciplined to be manipulated, too self-contained to be influenced. Their strategies fall apart the moment they approach you, because they were designed for people who fear being misunderstood. You don't fear misunderstanding. You use it. You let people misread your silence. You let them draw wrong conclusions. You let them underestimate your stillness. Because you learned long ago that nothing is more powerful than letting someone create their own illusion, and then letting them crumble under it. This is why you don't rush to clarify anything. This is why you don't rush to defend your name. This is why you don't rush to correct false narratives. You've learned that misunderstanding is camouflage. You've learned that letting people guess keeps you ahead of them. You've learned that unpredictable does not mean chaotic. It means unreadable. And unreadable is the highest currency in a world addicted to instant interpretation. So they watch you harder, they whisper louder, they speculate deeper, and every theory contradicts the last. Some say you are calculated, some say you are cold, Some say you are intuitive. Some say you are dangerous. Some say you've changed. None of them are wrong. None of them are right. Because they're all describing the version of you that mirrors their own insecurities. You don't confuse them. Their reflection in you confuses them. That's why your presence feels heavy to them, because it forces them to confront the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. You didn't mean to expose them. You simply outgrew them. And outgrowing someone is the most silent form of revelation. They don't fear losing you. They fear being seen by you. And so they keep staring, keep analyzing, keep trying to find a weakness, a crack, a misstep, anything to reassure themselves that you're not as precise as you appear. But every attempt only magnifies their own instability. The more they try to read you, the more they reveal themselves. The more they try to decode you, the more they lose the thread of their own identity. The more they try to predict you, the more unpredictable they become. Because while they're busy studying you, you are busy studying everything. Your environment, your options, your positioning, your timing, your future. You've trained your mind to see patterns before they fully form. You've trained your instincts to detect shifts others dismiss. You've trained your awareness to pick up cues others overlook. And that training whores years, lifetimes of work. Looks like prophecy to those who never mastered themselves. You're not ahead because time favors you. You're ahead because you stopped wasting it, and the world is slowly realizing it. People you haven't spoken to in months still feel your presence in their decisions. People who once dismissed you now measure themselves against your growth. People who once tried to overshadow you now orbit the very light they mocked. Without trying, you have become a measurement, a mirror, and all of them feel the shift. But this is still only the beginning. But the deeper this goes, the clearer it becomes that their obsession with you has outgrown simple curiosity. It's become a system, a reflex, a network of eyes that weren't assigned but recruited by their own fixation. You didn't ask for attention yet. Somehow every room, every group chat, every quiet corner of their minds has turned into a watchtower pointed in your direction. Your presence is no longer just presence. It's surveillance disguised as fascination. It's analysis disguised as admiration. It's anxiety disguised as interest. People who claim not to care still track your patterns as if their stability depends on it. They study how you sit during a conversation, how long you hold eye contact, how slowly you choose your words. They think all of it reveals something about your strategy, your intentions, your next move. But what they fail to understand is that your moves aren't calculated for them. They're calibrated for yourself. You're not predicting them. You're managing you. The fact that they feel predicted is just a side effect of your discipline and the harsher truth. People aren't afraid of what you'll do. They are afraid of what knowing you says about them. Your existence is a test they didn't study for, and it shows. Their voices shift when you enter the room. Their posture straightens. Their smiles stretch too wide or clamp too tight. They start monitoring each other's reactions, wondering who knows you better, who has insight they don't. You've turned ordinary dynamics into competitive tension without lifting a finger. You've become the variable that exposes every flaw in their equation. And the more they try to adjust to you, the more unbalanced they become. Someone tries to imitate your tone, a calm, measured cadence that carries weight without effort. They try it for a day and burn out because they can't sustain a persona built on inner stability. They never learn to cultivate. Someone else tries to mirror your silence, the kind that holds the room without being oppressive. But their silence isn't quiet. It's empty. It trembles with unspoken insecurity. It collapses the moment someone questions it. Someone else tries to copy your discipline, your ability to detach, to wait, to move only when alignment hits. They last 3 hours before craving attention, validation, response. They realize discipline isn't aesthetic, it's sacrifice. It's choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. And that choice is too heavy for most. That's when the envy sets in, not because they want your life, but because they want your internal architecture. They want the steadiness beneath your expression. They want the clarity beneath your decisions. They want the resilience beneath your posture. They want the version of you that was forged, not inherited. But wanting the outcome without the origin is the first crack in their sanity. And cracks spread quickly around you. They begin creating theories to explain your composure. Some say you're emotionless. Others say you're calculating. Others whisper that something changed. You, as if transformation is only acceptable when it's convenient for them. They invent narratives that make your growth digestible to their egos, because if they admitted the truth, that you simply outgrew who you were, they would have to confront the fact that they didn't. They cling to the fantasy that growth is a glitch, not a choice, that self-mastery is luck, not discipline, that awareness is mystical, not learned. They need these excuses to preserve their self-image. But every excuse they build collapses the moment they face you. You've become living evidence that their stagnation is a decision, not a circumstance, and that realization destabilizes everything they believe about themselves. So they double down on the investigation. They dig deeper, they read more into everything you do. Silence becomes message, movement becomes strategy, absence becomes dominance. You breathe and they you blink and they annotate it. You speak once and they spend hours decoding the tone. They're unraveling under the weight of their own scrutiny, a weight you never asked them to carry. But that's the paradox of presence like yours. The more centered you become, the more uncentered they feel. Your inner balance becomes their outer chaos. Your peace becomes their crisis point. Your clarity becomes the mirror that strips away their illusions. And illusions do not die quietly. People who once claimed to understand you begin to second-guess every memory. They replay old conversations, trying to detect hints they missed. They wonder if you were always this composed, or if they were simply too distracted to notice. They start rewriting the past to match the myth of the present. Because the truth, that you rebuilt yourself, is too heavy for them to accept. They prefer the legend that you emerged this way, untouched, unaffected, ordained. The legend protects them from acknowledging their own stagnation, but legends have side effects. As your myth grows, so does their paranoia. They start believing you know things you don't. They assume you see things you never looked for. They imagine you predicted outcomes you simply prepared for. Your alignment becomes their superstition. Your decisions become their omens. Your stillness becomes their storm. Some unknown posts a vague message online. They swear it's about you. Someone laughs in a group conversation. They swear you predicted it. Some unknown succeeds and they whisper that you saw it coming. Someone fails and they swear you warned it. They turn your existence into a prophecy because prophecy is easier to swallow than discipline. But the deeper the paranoia spreads, the more they stop trusting themselves. They start checking your reactions before making decisions. They start waiting for your next move before taking theirs. They start adjusting their strategies based on your silence. You became the center of their internal compass, not because you demanded it, but because they surrendered to it. That's the quiet dominion of self-mastery. You don't fight for power. Power rearranges itself around you. People who once tried to rival you now watch you like a forecast. Every shift in your tone feels like a warning. Every glance feels like a calculation. Every pause feels like a prediction. They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of what your presence reveals about them. Because standing next to someone who is aligned forces misaligned people to confront their misalignment. Standing next to someone who is focused forces scattered people to face their distractions. Standing next to someone who is disciplined forces reactive people to acknowledge their chaos. You're not intimidating. Their reflection is, but here's where the story deepens further. Their obsession evolves. It stops being about understanding you and becomes about escaping the effect you have on them. They try distancing themselves, thinking space will silence the mirror. It doesn't. Reflection doesn't disappear with distance. It follows consciousness. Even in your absence, you remain the reference. They check your social media expecting clues. They analyze your silence as if it's a coded message. They monitor your absence as if it's the loudest signal you've ever given. Absence becomes your influence. Stillness becomes your strategy. Distance becomes your dominion. And the longer you stay still, the louder their minds become. They start battling themselves, not you. They start arguing with their assumptions. They start questioning their instincts. They start losing the internal wars they created. All because you exist with intention. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're just not explaining yourself. And people fear what isn't explained because it forces them to fill the silence with the truth they've been avoiding. That's why your presence feels like Vunat. Because you've been here before, but because they have facing the same insecurities, the same patterns, the same fractures they tried to outrun. You're not the echo, you the trigger. And as they spiral deeper into the labyrinth of their own interpretations, you remain steady, unmoved, unharmed by their projections, because you know the truth they refuse to accept. You didn't gain this power by predicting others. You gained it by mastering yourself, and self-mastery is the one phenomenon people will always misinterpret as prophecy. This story still doesn't end here, because the moment they realize they can't outrun your clarity, something subtle, almost imperceptible, begins to shift. Their obsession stops feeling like analysis and starts feeling like surrender. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the quiet kind that happens in the corners of the mind where pride can't interfere. At first, they'll tell themselves they're just observing you for inspiration. Then they'll say it's out of respect. But eventually, even they can't deny the truth. They've started rearranging their lives around a version of themselves they only discovered through watching you. It's ironic, really. They once underestimated you. Now, they're reconstructing themselves from the blueprint of everything they once dismissed. You didn't preach to them. You didn't correct them. You didn't persuade them. Your existence alone did the teaching. And that's what unsettles them most. The realization that you never tried to influence them, yet somehow you did. You became the silent architecture in the back of their minds, the voice they hear when they're about to repeat an old mistake, the calm they try to imitate when their world starts shaking. They'll never say it out loud, but you've become the standard they measure themselves against. Your stillness became their compass. Your discipline became their reminder. Your self-respect became their aspiration. You didn't rise to impress them. You rose because collapsing was no longer an option. You evolved because staying the same would have cost you everything. You mastered yourself because life demanded it. But now they stand in the aftermath of your evolution, trying to understand how you turned survival into poise and pain into precision. They once believed you were operating in another timeline. Now they realize you were operating in another mindset. And that mindset, that quiet, unshakable certainty, is what they hope to find in themselves. But here's the twist they never expected. Your journey was never about proving anything to them. It was about becoming someone you could finally recognize without flinching. The world just happened to witness it. And now, as the narrative closes in on its final note, One truth rises above all the noise. You are not ahead because you predicted the future. You are ahead because you stopped. That is what they see. That is what they feel. That is what keeps them watching. Not prophecy, not mystery, just mastery, reflected back at a world still catching up to itself. And now you walk forward, calm, clear, and sovereign, knowing the story doesn't truly end here. It begins with every step they never saw coming.